Okay, great. Okay, so welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We're so excited to have you here. We're so excited to have George Wallace with us. As you may know, he is our writer in residence, and he hosts our program Walking with Whitman, and he's done that for 10 years, which is amazing. I don't think that 10 years ago we would imagine that it would be on Zoom the way it is now, but it's an awesome thing. We are going to have the next Walking with Whitman October 2nd, so definitely write that in your calendars now. We'll have Leonard Lehrman with us. It'll be a musical poetry event. He's with us tonight, actually. So definitely mark that in your calendar. Okay, and then I'm going to come back now. There we go. Okay. So I also wanted to say thank you so much to everyone who donates to us every week. Any amount of donations right now means so much to us. We recently opened the museum again, and we're so happy to be back on site. And we love it when people come visit us in person, as well as for our events on Zoom, which we will continue to have. At some point, I hope that we have sort of a mixture of in-person and Zoom. That would be amazing. We'll get there eventually, but definitely plan to visit with us on site. We were in Newsday last week, which is amazing, but in Newsday they wrote that you need a reservation, but you absolutely don't need a reservation. You can come visit us as long as we're open. The hours and everything are on our website. It's 11 to 4 p.m. weekdays, 12 to 4 weekends. So please plan to visit if you're in the area. If not, you're here on Zoom, and that's such a great support to us as well. So thank you so much for that. I will be posting links in a little bit, and those links will bring you to our upcoming events. They'll bring you to our donation page. A lot of people have been signing up recently to donate a little bit each month. It's a reoccurring donation. It's new. We just updated our website, so we're really excited for that. If you're interested, again, just $5 like you would spend at Starbucks on coffee, for us means multitudes. So thank you so much again for that. All right, so I do want to talk about our events just very briefly before we get started. And we have a lot upcoming. We have so many upcoming events that they're not all on our website yet. And as you know, last week was a little bit of a loss for posting things on the internet with Hurricane Isaias, but we're making a comeback right now. And so next week we will have poet and Emmy-winning lyricist Maggie Bloomfield with us next Thursday at 6:30 p.m. And she's actually with us tonight. Hi, Maggie, I see you there. So please join us for that. And the following week, we will have Walt Whitman Birthplace, Poet of the Year, Christina M. Rao. She'll be doing yoga and meditation with us. She'll be doing it at the Birthplace live. So that's going to be an amazing event. It's at 1 p.m. on the 27th of August. That's another Thursday, a little bit earlier because she needs that daylight for the video. And even if you're not into yoga, it's going to be an amazing experience because she's going to be reading poetry and also talking about meditation. And it'll just be a really nice way for us to all get refreshed. The upcoming school year, everything like that. So it's a good time to sort of take a breath and meditate and listen to wonderful poetry with Christina. And that's all the events I'm going to go into for the moment. Again, on our website, we always have all of our events available, all of the pre-registration links like you used to get here tonight, and our email blasts. If you want to join our email blast and get all of our upcoming events right to your email, my email will be in the comment section very soon. And I feel like I'm forgetting something, and like I said, out of practice this week. But, oh, I know what I'm forgetting. So during the event, again, I just ask that you stay muted, but at the end, we will have applause, so hold them in till the end if you can. And we'll also have questions and answers at the end as well. Okay, so without further ado, we have George Wallace with us, and he is Walt Whitman Birthplace Association's writer in residence currently, and for the past 10 years. And like I was saying, he's been hosting Walking with Whitman with us for so many years, for 10 whole years. And he is the first poet laureate of Suffolk County. And he is the former laureate of the International Beat Poetry Festival and author of 37 chapbooks. And he has a lot of other amazing accomplishments, but I don't want to take all our time with it. But as you joined this event, I'm sure you saw his bio. So welcome, George. Thank you so much for being with us in a whole different capacity. And we're so happy to have you here tonight. I'm going to give you the spotlight right now.
Right. Thank you, Caitlin. Good job always. And we've never been in better hands with poetry at the Walt Whitman Birthplace since, well, first when Cynthia came in and with you helping us out with the various events. So I wanted to thank you for that and thank Cynthia for all the good work you do for poetry in general, poetry among Long Island writers, and by reaching out to the rest of the world now, especially with Zoom, you know, we're starting to show that there's a lot of great things that are happening here at the Birthplace. So thank you for that. It's been a pleasure to be at the Birthplace for the past 10 years. And each year I wonder if my bones are going to hold up. But I recently went to an orthopedic surgeon and got some new advice and a bicycle machine and some cortisone shots. So my bones are feeling strong, really strong. And I really feel I've got a lot of future ahead of me. And therefore we have a lot of future together. And I'm looking forward to sharing my poetry with you today. Thank you. I'm going to read about a dozen poems. That's what I figure will take 40 minutes. And they're all recent poems within the past year or so. You know, although maybe at the end, if there's a request, I may be able to dig something up quickly. We'll see how that goes. This poem is called My First Love. And it's a suburban poem, you know, suburban New York poem. It's the idea of being out here on Long Island and having relatives from the city coming out to visit, and from the old country coming out to visit as well when they come to New York and then start coming out to the suburbs. So it's about that rite of passage, and it's about the spread into the 100% American culture of new immigrant groups. My first love. It was Sunday again. The cabbages were washed twice and lined up on the drain board for boiling. Me and my big sister were in our church clothes, waiting on the Sunday train from the city. The Sunday train from the city, which had failed to come on time again. We were bored, irritated. We were doing our best. Where was Sam the landlord, my stupid uncle? Where was his small, fussy wife and their 3 irrelevant children? All of them swarthy. When in it came, the train, the Long Island Railroad, peeking in from under a big rain cloud, festive as a new American morning, and cannons booming in the village square, and the city train with its big whistle blowing in its optimistic smokestack, and people pouring out of it, including her, my new cousin, fresh off the boat. And my mother said, "She's from the old country. Be nice to her, George." And with her golden hair and pale, cold country skin, why is the rest of the world so swarthy? How could it be otherwise? How could I do otherwise? She with her hesitant manner, her polite, fresh as the sun is misty, April manner, but I could neither speak nor say a word. She was so beautiful. No other way to express it, the simple golden idea of her perfect, and me speechless, and her with no English whatsoever, therefore necessarily silent. We were reduced to gestures and monosyllables and foolish smiling until we got her back to the house and they put her in a chair in the middle of the kitchen where she was on full display, right in the middle of the kitchen, cold as a new potato that had rolled off the countertop somehow and come to rest in the full naked view of everyone in the room, the linoleum floor, the cabbages lined up and waiting to be boiled. Unreal family. Why, anybody in this room could get at her, I realized. Anybody here could get at her, hurt her, alarmed now. Anybody in the room could fuss over her, damage her, ignore her, touch her, trip over her, tip her over, admire her appropriately or inappropriately. Even the house cat could get a casual whack at her if it wanted. And I knew at that moment I must always and tirelessly love and protect her. And I knew I must forever be guardian to that which she embodied in the terrible glare of the actual ordinary world. Her golden, silent beauty, effortlessness, her vulnerability, otherworldly, rare. My first love. It's a poem I read last fall in New York City at a ceremony. It was actually in Brooklyn for an elegy for Steve Dalachinsky. It's the only time I read it was at after his death. So I thought this might be an occasion. Recently, I was having a lot of time in the house to myself in this quarantine. I've been dialoguing with poets long gone and not so distant, and Steve is one of them. So I have a couple of poems here that are in dialogue with other poets, and this one is called An Elegy for Steve Dalachinsky. And it's because of the way he, in his strange, unusual manner, took me under his wing. And you in New York City will know about that, you New York City poets who are here today. So without further ado, an elegy for Steve Dalachinsky. They announced you dying during the open mic at the Parkside Lounge. The date, September 15th, Sunday. The crowd in the ballroom beyond the curtains cheered or fell silent on cue, depending on the score. It was the New Orleans Saints. They were losing on the widescreen TV. And nobody in the joint cared about football then, or nobody in the joint cared about poetry anymore then, only you. You would have hated that line and heckled me for it from the back of the room and then embraced me afterwards, kissing me on the top of my head the way that you used to do, like the brother that I never had, to fight with and to love. Steve Dalachinsky, the ethology of connectedness flowing through your veins like the tongue of God, latter-day Apollinaire wailing like Cecil Taylor in the last days of the great American empire of jazz. Zone of your own, intricate, troubled, fine. I saw your manuscripts. David, you saw his manuscripts. Your words spilled across the page like lost tribes of Israel. No stage could hold such restless energy. Just as I saw you in all your seasons, celebrating spring at the Botanical Gardens, Yuko plucking wayward cherry blossoms from your shirt sleeve, lounging bare-chested as a lizard on a summer ledge or on a rock at Esopus Creek in Woodstock, admiring the funerary flowers of autumn, leaves ripening on trees. We drove through New Jersey on a highway overlooking the Palisades. Or laughing with old Gerd Stern in the slush of some street corner in New York City, shuffling your feet like two Charlie Chaplins in winter. I imagine you standing on the pavement outside the gates of heaven, hawking readings to come on slips of paper no bigger than the size of your thumb, bitching about the price to get in, or just performing in New York City church basements and radical worker halls in smoky Paris and Tokyo dives and Woodstock Town Hall in Brooklyn tenements, every damn poetry club and second story walk-up you could score. Remember that day Ira Cohen's bash at Zebulon? You were cracking jokes while Ira danced on the screen, reel to reel on the crowded banks of the Ganges. Or in the courtyard behind Steve Cannon's place, mosquitoes buzzing at your neck, you shooed them away in the dark, the bloody night swelling with your music. Comrade, brother, Steve Dalachinsky, one-man jazz orchestra, fellow traveler on some arcane, esoteric mission from heaven, the only grown man to ever call me Georgie. The only grown man to call me when my own heart gave out. Rest in peace. I never got to thank you for teaching me how to sing. For Steve Dalachinsky. Being these are recent poems, I thought I'd do one that has to do with the being locked in and and the circumstances of COVID. And what about the protests? I'll do those two now. This is about, and you may recall the doctor who was a New York Presbyterian. She was an emergency room doctor, and she was from Virginia. She was working her heart out, and in the emergency rooms in New York City during the height of the epidemic here, and contracted with the disease, was sent away to recuperate, and it weighed on her, and I'm not sure about how well she recovered, but she committed suicide. With the weight of her experiences and the tragedy that she had encountered. So this is for Lorna Breen, Dr. Lorna Breen, who also is a cellist. And the obituary said that she really loved playing the cello and helping other people, other human beings. If only I could play Foray's elegy like Lorna Breen. This poem is for Lorna Breen and the strength of her compassion and the unspoken depths of her wounds. Dr. Lorna Breen, age 49, chief of emergency medicine at New York Presbyterian, who loved playing cello and snowboarding and posted pictures of it on Facebook, who was at the center of it all. The impossible situation come horribly true in the streets and hospitals in New York City. The great pandemic, COVID 2020, 2,000 patients piled up in every bed, behind every hospital door. In New York, ambulances idling, 3 bodies deep in the parking lot, dead on arrival and nobody else to deal with but those who took an oath to do so. The rest of us in town ordered to avoid all contact with death. This poem is for Lorna Breen at the limits of her endurance when the virus took her, sick with it, and then she recovered just enough to go back to work, and she, quote unquote, tried to do her job, and it killed her, said her dad, also a doctor back in Charlottesville, Virginia. And this poem for every doctor, every nurse, every emergency worker, of course, and in New York City all day and all night at the center of the storm. How to stand at a window at 7 p.m. and offer applause and then return to the silence of our rooms when day after goddamn day they get up out of their grim beds and throw themselves back into the thick of it. And yes, how to ever again say these words, avoid it like the plague. How can I ever say a stupid cliche like that again? But most of all, this poem for Lorna Breen, 49, who loved to play cello and save other people's lives. Lorna Breen, who took her own life after saving many others, who did herself and her family proud, who stood side by side with her colleagues, no place to hide from this terrible witness, offering all the strength in her all too human body, and aid and comfort to the dead and dying until there was just no more to give. For Lorna Breen. This was early on in the protests after George Floyd was killed. It was in New York, and it was before the whole thing turned into what it turned into as a major nationwide hullabaloo in Portland, and protests and counter-protests and injection of whatever was injected into it by provocateurs in the White House and outside of the White House and various movements. It was just New York City people protesting. There was a bunch of people that were protesting one night, and they got trapped on the Brooklyn Bridge, and they were stuck on the Brooklyn Bridge. There was cops at one end of the Brooklyn Bridge, and there was cops at the other end of the Brooklyn Bridge, and they had to get home before curfew because they were just, kids from Iowa and Indiana and Ohio and North Carolina who were living in Brooklyn and come across the bridge to protest in Manhattan. They were trying to get home before they got their heads cracked by the cops, and they were stuck. They were stranded, over the East River. And that was that moment that I realized how we're all stuck, how we all become stuck, trapped, hanging by a thread. 5,000 protesters trapped on a bridge between America and America. 5,000 of them trapped on a bridge. 5,000 peaceful and fearless and wise. No rioters, no looters, no thugs, no provocateurs of any type, agency, or political stripe. American to the core, young and Whitmanic too. Yes, I can say that. Great in their diversity and energetic in their vision and optimism of hope. Hanging by a thread of filament of steel between Brooklyn and Manhattan Island tonight. By injustice provoked, by injury to the body and soul of their nation provoked, by their own grace provoked, by their anger over the death in Minnesota of a man named George Floyd, provoked, made fearless by the electricity of their cause, made wise by their open-eyed youth, tested against the fires of injustice, set once too often in a damaged land, young, American, righteous, undegraded, the unstained restorative power of their uplifted voices. Insistent, sure voices raised in curious chorale, almost unexpected, yet they will always be raised. It is the nature of a free people to raise their voices against oppression, raise them together, made strong, rekindle the spirit of the people. 5,000 protesters, young, angry, trapped on a bridge between America and America, who can no longer allow injustice to hold sway, or allow police brutality and racism and hate, or the division of brother from brother or sister from sister to hold sway. 5,000 protesters because the idea of America is greater than its errors. No matter that the great American idea maybe temporarily seemed to be abandoned, because the possibility of tear gas and busted heads and arrest and being hauled off bloody and proud in a police wagon is better than being silent. 5,000 protesters, America's daughters and sons, hemmed in on both sides by cops in armor with shields and guns and billy clubs and gas masks, and thousands of handcuffed ripties who are young themselves, the cops, and American too, and must therefore eventually give way to protesters. 5,000 protesters cuffed tonight by stone, tower, and cold steel, as well as by circumstance and grim necessity. Between heaven above and the deep, damaging waters of the East River surging below. Dakota. This is not because of the question of presidents' faces on sacred mountains necessarily. Or unsacred presidents faces unsacred mountains, sacred or unsacred. Dakota, leaning southwest into the colossal darkness that comes before dawn, listening for the holy drone of civilizations, short-lived, transient, and the voices of gods that drove them across this land, America. I am driven too. I drove the Golden Spike. I tapped the underground spring. I unleashed iron and oil, diamonds and coal. I fired the miner and hired the cook. I am nobody, put up to no good. Raise no statue to me. And yet I am somebody with my painterly eyes and my ribs like ambition. My reason quick as ponies. My intuition native to every land that calls me home. Attuned to natural rhythms, I am all ears like drums. I am all sweat lodge, reverent. I am no regret and tall tales told by the campfire. You will find me soon enough if you dig deep enough and are patient enough. I am clumsy as bear scat, and also the turtle's egg. I am the wild orphan child, an Irish coracle abandoned to the reeds, returned to silky. I tie rattles around my ankles when I dance like bones. And when I sweat ginger root. And when I am curious, then I am my mother's child again, innocent in her arms. And I am of the sweet grass. Yes, you can smoke me if you want to, and the stone pipe. That's me too. There's plenty more of me where that came from. Oh, I am mad, mad as Blake. Ginsberg taught me how to chant this song, and so did my good gray uncle Walt. Oh, read my eyes, America. I am talking to you like Kansas leafhoppers spoke to Kerouac. I am a cradle left out in a squall. I am rocking. The summer rain which cools you cools me too, and the lightning which spooks horses spooks me. And yes, I am an offering. Tobacco, disoriented, buzzing like flowers, aromatic, a pouch passed hand to hand with shavings of red cedar. That's me too. Toss me aside for empty when you are done with me. The less of me that is left, the more I become. I am smoke disappearing, returning, like the curvature of the sea that once swept this horizon. So I too remain calm. All surface, a blue moon gliding across my face is something like peace. My gut swimming with eels, and I am erasing my own fingerprints as I cross sand. What is this thing called sand? I am wind, I am rock, I am sand, and I am like tombstones, and I am monuments. I keep myself busy as if this poem were eternal, as if you, listening to this poem right now, were eternal. No more presidents, no more wars, no more statues, no more flags, no more governments. Only this, lakes, rivers, holy, original prairies, introverted, shy foxes laughing, goofing along as they go. To be stuck here one more day, irreverent, with you, an old man, not quite monk, painted on a scroll, 1 foot in heaven, and the other in the shitter. With a jug of wine in my arms and a shack of wind for shelter. Leaning out through the enormous window to take a piss before the cold winter comes. Dakota. How's it going? Maria, thank you.
It's going great.
It's going all right?
Yes, really wonderful.
Did I lose anybody? No, we got 54 participants. Dude, I love you guys. Thank you. Lorca. Federico Garcia Lorca is particularly important to me, has become particularly important to me. You know, as one of those poets who gave it all up, or had it all taken from him by a fascist government. So I've been doing some conversations with Lorca. This one's from about a week ago. Lorca doesn't drink here anymore. If only I could remember your words. Horses, mountains, gypsies, gypsy bars, love, pain, lost faith, socialism, commingling in the August heat. We drank together, you and I, Federico Garcia Lorca. We made love, a man with a blue guitar, proud, disdainful, lamenting all the sensuality of old Spain, Federico. At a corner table, an old man with silver eyes empties mountain passes, recites poetry. In fact, all Andalusia was singing. And Federico Garcia Lorca, you were singing rural songs, sang darkly. I cannot remember the words. Motionless as a lizard on a hypnotist rock. Your eyes brown as mountains. We drank it in deep, the shimmering duende. I remember us in better times, you said, and fingered your wine glass coyly as a girl, as a child. We wandered hand in olive trees. You loved me better then, you said. Even in the awful silence of Spain's simmering heat, your voice was fresh as mountain water, seduced me. Fuentes Vaqueros was never far from your lips, Federico. I was never like you. You were cool and handsome. I was wild and innocent. Perhaps you secretly admired the peasant in me. You offered me figs. I took them from your hands. You filled my mouth with poetry. I was poor, witless, and distracted, and in Spain. And what you desired is what you received. The adoration of a simple man, no better than a goat herd you picked up in snow-capped mountains. This is a memory I do not share with just anyone. How I was seduced by you, Garcia Lorca. Feral, animated, native to Andalusian heat. And your hands, two small, delicate, mortal creatures, and the sacred hot thrum of your voice. How like cicadas singing in the mute, lost heat of summer. Federico Garcia Lorca. 709. I think 2 or 3 more poems. That'd be good, Caitlin?
Yes, it sounds great, George. And you have so many wonderful comments in the chat already. I know you can't see them yet, but They're there.
That would distract me and then I'd get embarrassed. Death of Hope. This I wrote this morning. Was it this morning or yesterday morning? Death of Hope. It was yesterday. Death of Hope on a Station Wall. And as John, if you're still there from Mexico, John Roche pointed out, it's about finding hope in a hopeless situation, which I think, we can probably all relate to that. Am I wrong? Death of Hope on a Station Wall. And actually responded to a prompt, it was on Facebook. Mark Borzin from Erie, Pennsylvania, put up a poem about a Russian filmmaker, Tarkovsky, and wrote a poem about it and said, I want everybody to write a poem about Tarkovsky, which I never seen any of the guy's movies, but he's a classic. He's great. So I pulled one up that I could find on YouTube. It was complete, and I got about 4 minutes into it. That's all I needed to do because it's a combination of Ingmar Bergman and Angelopoulos, Theo Angelopoulos, that long panning, scenes, it's beautiful. It just took place in Sweden. That's as far as I needed to go because I believe if you're going to do an ekphrastic poem, whether it's off of a painting or a film, you can, you don't have to get the whole thing. You don't have to know the whole person, the entire person. If you get a spark and you go on a tangent in some direction. And that's what that did. It only took me about 4 minutes into that movie. I think it was called Sanctuary. You could check it out yourself to get this poem. And part of it was that, this guy studied Nietzsche. Well, then the guy in the character in the movie was talking about Nietzsche and Zarathustra, thus spake Zarathustra. So I was able to Google that enough to find out something about Zarathustra and the idea, which at the end of this thing is the hermit descending from the mountain and a madman turning ashes into fire, which is like bang, it gets you at the end of hopefully gets you at the end of the poem. But that comes out of Nietzsche and his conversation, his discussion about Zarathustra. But it's set in a archetypal European train station. The clock ticking on the wall, all the iron girders above, and the crowds going past from all nations, and nothing happening, just sitting there and waiting. I hope you can relate to it. All day long, I sit at the red brick railway station waiting for my train to arrive. All day long. Any train, really. Any train. Train to love. Train to masculinity, train to peace or war or madness or escape. I sit on a wooden bench under a clock on the wall, a clock with big bloody hands that sweep and sweep like a scythe through history and time, like armies of peasants in fields of Scandinavian wheat. An old brick railway station, big as a cathedral or a tithing barn, built during a period of ancient prejudices baked into the law of the land. Before the last war, big as a mausoleum to the war dead, a railway station with arc lights and swallows in the rafters and endless iron trestles designed to hold high the rooftop of 1,000 years and falling, forever falling. All day long, I sit here, and the station master passing me by, eyeing me nervously, looking at his pocket watch, looking at me, and a clickety-clack of luggage, and women and men and long dogs with short legs at the ends of leashes, and departures and arrivals, and announcements of delays flashing on the big cryptic sign. That's probably Penn Station. And the people rushing by in their practical traveling clothes, the blank expectant expression on their faces, common as wool, easy to read, indifferent to each other as naked plastic models waiting to be dressed in department store windows are indifferent to their nakedness. Away from here and the death of hope on the station wall, to the rites of Dionysus, exercised on the edge of olive groves or deep into some steep Lydian range. Away to the temple of bells in mountains towering above Buzkashi plains, meditating at the feet of some holy Himalayan nobody, waiting on the train to nowhere, which is everywhere, at the absolute center of unified time, away from these bleak days of work and sweat and isolation and obedience and Holocaust and cancer and terror and mechanical come to heal. To great cities and theatrical lights of champagne and easy caresses, dubious lovers, to places distant and exotic, Sendrar's places, places Tarkovsky dared not even dream, though he saw them, as he saw the angel at the heart of unreality who saves us. To travel beyond the Fisher Hut and fjord, beyond the checkpoint at no man's land, where dark men in boots and sunglasses drinking tea from Istakhan glasses stop an honest man at the border, do not allow him to pass. With a simple wave of my hand, I bid you pass through with me. We will take the train to the Valley of Uncertainty, where the hermit descended from the mountains lives, and the madmen turn ashes into fire. If Ira Cohen had read that at the end, the very end, he would have dropped his voice an octave for that last, and the madmen turn ashes into fire. Total grumble, but anyway. I'll conclude with a Whitman poem. This one's a little older. This one is really pretty new. I look to my hands and do not complain. I look to my hands and do not complain. For Walt Whitman. I am like you, Walt Whitman, a vessel to the one soul, imperfect singer in which soul takes passage, mechanical, that which is called a man, but a shell of the same, immortal contained in an imperiled vessel, guardian to the God force contained within, and yet harmonious to the same. Mantra of the brass singing bowl, of glacier and mountain and spring, the same. Mantra of the unbent trunk at the top of a windy crest, a Douglas fir in winter, the same. Mantra of the daylily in the field, subject to the most delicate summer breezes with bowed head. I do not sing for the lark, or answer for the slaughter of sheep where the wolf pack pass. Neither do I answer for my fellow man or their concerns, nor attempt to justify what I see or hear. Why, this one is understood and not the other. Why, this one is condemned and the other raised up. While one society will rise while another will crumble. I can justify neither my own accomplishments and failures, nor those of other women or men, equal to all. No more, no less under the equal sun to any. A man of my hands, simple, not of contradictory mind. The curiosity of my hands, wiser than my brain, and without ambiguity. Their own poem, wondering at the mechanics of fish that swim and birds that fly, wondering at the strength of the uppermost branches and the well-modulated bend of Earth's horizon. Prying, questioning, noisy, inquisitive hands, meddlesome, and the chiefest agents of my own sinew and flesh, the knots in my calves, the aching desire in my shoulders and hips, the surety in my bones, compared to all that, the plasticity of my hands, how they grasp a pen and guide a plow, how they tend a wound or comfort a child, and worry and play, how they repair a tool and probe the dark flesh of hidden places. Temples of anger and love, grief and adoration. Temples of curiosity and piety and disgust. Temples, these two hands, like yours, Walt Whitman, like yours, Walt Whitman, like your poets to come, I me, I you. Extraordinary, typical, astonishing creatures of the earth in articulation, independent of and therefore amicable to inheritance, built as we are of the same fundamental stuff of stars, and as humble and as enduring. And you ask it of me, Walt Whitman? I give it back to you, reciprocal as love. Leaving it to you to provide and define it, explaining the main things from you. I look to my hands and do not complain. As I look to the creatures of the earth and the stars and to onrushing death, how gracefully it all lies, like your hands, Walt Whitman, only superficially at rest, reservoir to the implacable, inquisitive as the one eternal soul, and as curious, and as curious, and as curious, curious as a newborn baby, beholding its mother's face for the first time, curious as a prophetess, gazing into a fire so long she sees the face of God, curious as a poet, waking from his sleep, rises with a poem fully formed on his tongue for Walt Whitman. Thank you all. Thank you very much. That's a pretty good reading to experience. It really came out good. I didn't see anybody's face the whole time. There you guys. All right.
Yes, George not have the zoom up on his screen because his glasses.
Because look at the glare. It's a glare, yeah. This glare is JG. This glare is Kelly Powell. There's Francine Witt right there.
I'm just gonna come back for a second. George, that was so powerful, so powerful. And I'm so happy that was on Zoom because now it's recorded and we can watch it again anytime.
Oh, cool.
You brought us from current events, but you have that Whitmanic influence, so powerful. So everyone, if you want to unmute for a moment, give our round of applause. And
Thank you. There's Mary Jane.
Great job.
Hey, Mary Jane, nice haircut.
So good. So good.
I'm gonna come back.
Great job. Loved it.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Just beautiful.
All right, and then
Wow.
if we want to one by one unmute, you know, I know it's a little hard to gauge it, but you can come on, you can ask questions, you have comments, and you can also write in the chat, and then I will read them to
We're
George.
gonna have these.
Lost the glasses.
Well, one good thing came out of this quarantine. It's George's new poetry.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Because I was up. I don't know about you guys, but you know, I'm up like 5-6 times in the night. 2 o'clock where I get up, 3 o'clock get up, and usually at one of those get ups, you know, I got a poem cooking in my head, and I have to start writing it down.
Usually I get up and have to go to the bathroom and flush the toilet when I'm done.
Oh, it's Brendan. How you doing, Brendan? Good to hear your voice.
You too.
When's Bradstock? Is Bradstock happening?
No, we joined the 27 Club this year, just for 1 year. And we'll come back
okay.
next year.
Okay. This is a collection.
This work?
This is a collection, what you just did.
Oh, you think? Thank you for that.
I do. Totally.
They're just sitting, you know, because it's too, you know, they're all too recent for me to send out.
No.
Even. I mean, if you can see them all on Facebook. I post them all on Facebook.
Just name the book 2020.
2020, yeah, not a bad idea.
That's a good idea.
I'd publish it.
What a great thing to see them on Facebook and then sit here and watch you and hear you read them. That's an amazing experience.
Yeah, it's exciting for me too. I mean, I'm sure you know yourself, as all of you who are poets, you know, you write something in silence, and you know, you've got some sort of sound in your head of what it could possibly sound like. But it isn't until, you know, it actually drops into your mouth and you're enunciating it. It isn't even the same if there's not somebody at the other end. And if it wasn't you guys, I would have been mumbling most of these things. I wouldn't have really been projecting. So it's because I know you that I'm pushing it and finding the voice inside it. So, you know, the audience is part of what makes that happen. So I want to thank you for that. You know, whether you did that actively or just because I know you guys and love you all, you know, that's where it happens. It's mediated by that.
Hmm.
What we got? Oh yeah, there's Marcia Nelson. There's Tan. Yeah.
Hi, George.
How do you get a plain background like that, Marcia?
It's that's how I painted it. It's my wall.
Oh, okay.
Did you arrange them? Have you arranged them differently, or was this arrangement carefully thought through by you?
Well, you know, at 6:12, I carefully thought it through.
Okay. Well, it has such an arc to it, really.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, well, I mean, there's, you know, I write so much that I can gather a few threads together. You know, if I pay attention, I can pull the threads. If I did it blind, you know, it wouldn't have an arc. But there are threads of motif and thematic concern that I can pull together on short notice like this.
Well, you did it.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I was surprised actually, but it worked out well. Now, I don't know if that was 40 minutes worth, was it?
It was 400 minutes worth.
But there was 12 poems. It was 12 poems.
It didn't feel as long as it was at all. It felt very, very short.
Yeah, well, see, you know, Leonard, you know that, you know, the difference between, you know, the attention that music can draw, you know, from an audience as compared to words. Words recited maybe a little more, but words that really contain music in them. I think that, and which are conveyed with music in the voice, which I'm not doing now. I'm just talking with you all. You know, you could easily spend an hour in a concert, you know, 40-minute symphony or something like that, and it passes like that. So it's the music that makes that possible, I believe.
Sure. George, it's been a pleasure hearing you all these years, and it's been a real honor and delight to work with you and setting some of your poems to music, which we'll hear on October 2nd. Would you talk a little bit about what it's like to work with composers in general? I'm sure I'm not the only composer you've worked with, is that right?
I basically just turn it over to the composer, you know, because, you know, I've got a composer who's doing a whole album of my work in Greece. He's turning poems of my songs from my poems that are kind of pop Euro trash music, you know, but, you know, in a way they're nice, you know. And at first it was like, I was kind of like, I don't know, you know, it kind of felt like a little bit like the 1910 Fruit Gum Company to me at first, but it started to grow on me, and he's taken more and more liberties, which I'm glad of. You know, the first time that he took a poem on and took like 3 lines from it and then just, you know, took off tangentially with it. He was afraid to tell me. And he said, I hope you're not going to be too upset when you hear this. And I was glad, because the poem stands on its own. You know, it's got its own internal mechanisms and works on its own. To then try to put that to music, the music would become slave to the poem. I would rather you take 3 lines or 4 lines, you know, from the poem and then work off them and take off. So
well, that's kind of what we did with one of our collaborations. I took a couple of lines from a poem, or 1 line from a poem of yours, and said, write another poem based on that, and then you took off.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that can be very productive and collaborative.
Yeah. The other thing, answer to that question is not so much the compositional process, but performance process. And to step up on stage and to work with a musician. JG backed me up, and at Bradstock one year, he had drums behind me and stuff like that, which, you know, is really quite straightforward. But sometimes it works extremely well when you have a genius like David Amram. David Amram can hear stuff immediately. Bang! He comes in. He's supportive. His music is so supportive to everything that you do from the get-go. Other people, not so much. And there's a rock musician I've worked with, who I won't name, you know, who, when getting up on stage with him at the Bowery Poetry Club, and trying to read a poem with him and with another musician who's equally aggressive, was like trying to climb over bears to get the attention of the hunter. You know, it was impossible. There's no. Amram says it best. He says that, you know.
George, that's a great image. You should make a poem out of it.
But Amram says it best when he says that, you know, it's about listening. When you're up there, everybody has to listen to everybody else, because the voice is just one of the instruments. You have to leave aperture for every.
Hi, Maria.
So hi, Iris.
George, did I kind of pick up a change in your pacing? At least a little more space between some of the words of the lines of your poetry?
From the past, you mean?
Yeah.
Well,
it seems like there's a little more pausing and a little more silence between your words.
That's the drugs. Yeah. It's the drugs.
I noticed that too. In pause, you know, you had some pauses that made you think, you know, made you stop and think.
Oh, yeah. Well,
especially with the one about Lorna Green. Yeah.
Well, you know, a few years back when I was really perfecting my fast forward bop prosody style, it was all about, you know, never mind the details, just go with the flow. And hopefully you'll pick up 30% or 40% of the details, and they're all equally interesting and amazing. But that's not something for you to worry about, you know. So that works better on stage, you know, when, you know, you got to grab people's attention and keep their attention. It's like you got 2.5 minutes to do it. When you have 40 minutes of that is like a machine gun. It would be impossible for you to listen for 40 minutes. That's one of the reasons. Second reason, like I said, I facetiously said it's the drugs, but I mean, you know, being alone in like this compositional process, and as much as I am, you know, has made me more meditative. So I'm thinking about the details and elaborating on the details of my subject and fleshing them out with a lot more, you know, detail. So I want to be able to reflect that. The third thing is because of this kind of format, you know, I don't hear any feedback. You all know that when you're in a room with other people, you know, even though they're in the audience and you're up on stage, and even though the lights are on, you can feel the air.
Yeah.
You can feel the physical tension of a communal tension, and that's absent here.
Yeah.
So in order to try to build that, I slow down and give emphasis.
Well, it was very effective.
I just want to I want to thank you, George, and I want to thank Zoom, because I live way out on the East End, and so during regular poetry presentations, it's very challenging logistically for me to get to these things. And
sure.
This was so beautiful.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy to become familiar with your work. And I just admire that whole part of the island that has that rich community. You guys are rocking.
Yeah. Well,
thank you so much.
Well, thank you for that. But I mean, I'm pleased that today we could bring together 55, 60 people from Long Island, from New York City, from from New Mexico, from California, from Florida, and all people that, you know, have some association, maybe even know each other on Facebook to some extent, but we can bring everybody under the same roof. And that's an amazing thing to be able to do this. I'm really pleased by this.
Yeah,
Texas,
and if you
there's
bought
somebody from
Zoom,
Texas. Yeah.
and if you bought Zoom in February at $27 a share, you'd be very happy.
Yeah.
I thought your poem about Whitman was especially lovely.
Yeah, well, thanks. I mean, slowing down like this, all these poems are like 2 to 3 pages long, and I'm writing phrase by phrase, you know, like a three or 4 word phrase and then a comma, you know, and then another phrase. And a lot of these poems are long, narrow poems now, because I've finally given in to Facebook. And so that's how people are going to read things on Facebook. So the lines are very short, and I'm really paying attention to the syllabic way, to the way the words work now. But even when they're not so much syllabic, they're like 2 or 3 words and a comma, and then another. And so it's an accretion. You're building on, layering on, and layering on, and layering on, and layering on of image and idea. And that process, because, you know, if you got 5 hours, but it used to be I have 2 hours to do it. I get up at 7 o'clock, then I have to be somewhere by 9. So, you know, bang, 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 get it out. But now we're going all day and all night to write, so I can layer on more. And so they're much richer. The opportunity to write richer poems that are more, have that layering happens. And so that's that's not an exhaustive process. That's a process that gets richer as you do it. The more you pull in, the richer it gets. You know, as long as you're not just repeating yourself over, you know, ad infinitum, ad nauseum, but trying to create dimension and nuance and counterpoint and cubist direction to different directions and points of view about the same subject. It's an enrichment process. So that's why that poem, and most of those poems, I think, are exciting to me to create, because it's not, I can't do what a novelist does. I've never been able to do what a novelist does. I don't have the patience for it. But within this 2 or 3 page space, yeah, I've gotten more dimensional. So I think that hopefully that's what you're saying.
Any more questions? Also take them in the chat. We have a lot of great comments though, George. I want to make sure that you get to see those.
Oh, should I look at that now?
Yeah, if you'd like to, you can look at them now. And you can also save them, which is amazing. There are a lot of benefits to Zoom. I mean,
no, my ego's big enough. I don't need to save them. Where are they? Oh, look at this. 84 comments? Is that it?
Oh my God.
Oh
I
my
just
God.
want to say great reading, George. I never know what to say in these Q&A things, but
Oh, hey, Russ, how you doing? Good to see
I'm
you.
here and I'm digging. I'm
Got
rocking.
it, you orange. Wow.
And I'm sorry I was late. I've got a.
You're all orange, Russ.
Yeah, I know.
Agent
Yeah.
Orange, because you know you deal with
Agent,
bugs.
I know. There's all kinds of bad things to say about being orange now.
Orange.
I have to fix my lighting to like blue or something.
I did some orange sunshine at a Dead show in '76. It was fabulous.
Oh, there we go. Brendan always coming through with the right reply there.
It's probably your fault. These are some amazing comments. I'm going to copy these comments for later so that I'm not distracted.
I heard a lot of the older, wiser George Wallace kind of including himself as he was addressing the subjects of his poems, kind of blending in your own hard-earned wisdom.
That's a bulwark against death.
Yes, I know, and it was there. And it was there.
It's like, I'm not dying, I'm just right.
Right. No, but there were little glimpses of death in there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But beautiful ones.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I was touched by Lorna. That Lorna Breen story is really, you know, you want to put up a statue to somebody, you know, put up a statue.
That blew me away, that story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Heartbreaking.
Yes.
There's Judy Turek.
Judy.
How do you feel, Judy?
Good. How are you, George?
Good. Now what? Can we pass a jug of wine?
Yeah, man.
I've got mine.
George, I don't have the capacity to write comments when I have the phone on Zoom. So I'm just saying how much I dug it.
Oh, good.
I'm giving you like rose petals.
Oh, that's good. Thank you for that. My rose bush has really been it had one great blossoming season, but I trimmed it wrong.
Yeah.
I usually go out, and I trim it with my thumb, the thumb and forefinger, bud by bud by bud when it's over. And then there's enough there for a second blooming. But,
so that's what this is. And it's from my friend George who lives in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
It's his second bloom.
Yeah, but I was in a hurry, and I was, I don't know why, but I took a pair of clippers and I just clipped the whole bush, and I think I clipped it too far back. So that's why we've only, Mary Jane, that's why we've only had one real decent bloom.
They seem to be coming back a little bit.
A little bit, yeah, but not as much as in previous years.
Not like last year, no.
No.
So lovely.
Oh, look, you're in outer space.
I am.
Is that Spain? That's Spain behind you.
George, I can't wait for your workshop on August 22nd.
Oh, you're doing a workshop in San Francisco?
Yes, yeah.
25 people signed up. There's 10 people on the waiting list.
Okay.
If it hits 15, we're going to set up another one for Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Well, fabulous.
Yeah, I'll be
Yeah.
at that.
That's going to be fun. I love that. It's a great workshop. That it's going to be completely different online, of course. But Diana Frank, who we all know from here on Long Island, she runs Blue Light Press, and I've gone out there every year to do a workshop for her. And this year she said, "Well, we'll just do it by Zoom, and we'll have a bigger turnout because of Zoom than we would have otherwise." So you're going to be in it?
I'll be in it.
Great. Yeah, we'll have fun.
All right. Thank you so much, George. This has just been such a pleasure, and we get to see you as a poet this time, not a host as you usually are for Walking with Women. It's just been such a pleasure. And I just want to do one more round of applause, absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you. You were a lovely audience. I'll be here all week.
Glad you feel
Thank you, George.